Welcome to a Play to Win podcast where we talk about winning in cEDH. I'm Cam.
And I'm Dylan. Wow, it's just so great to be back. I'm so happy to be back with the podcast. Today we're talking about how to get into cEDH. You're new to the format, you've clicked on this link, so you want to get into cEDH, but how do you do that? What are the resources? What are the steps? How do you do it?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so this is going to be a great video. This is going to be a great video to send to your friend so that we can kind of cover everything that they would need to do to ideally get set up into the format. And I think that this is actually the way that a lot of people get into the format, but they just didn't realize that they covered 7.5 whole steps to get to the point that they're at.
Oh, so you're saying most people go through these steps that we've written down. Yeah, everyone's gone through this step. If you got into cEDH, we're breaking it down.
This is almost everything that I did.
Or these are the things that I wish I would have done in this order had I known about those.
Well, that's why this video is here, right? Like we wanna make
everything's
sure
at one source.
Yes, exactly. So this is the ideal way to get into cEDH.
Okay. All right. So we have 7.5 steps.
7.5. So we're gonna immediately start off with step a half, so that all of them end in a half now.
Good. All right.
So step 1.5.
That's perfect. Good.
So step 1/2 is we're gonna throw out all preconceived notions that we have about cEDH. Yeah. I don't care if you've heard that
it's a turn 1 format,
right?
Or if it's a turn 10 format,
right? There's so much variation that can happen in a cEDH, just like a regular EDH game. Turn order matters. There's a lot of stuff that comes up that you don't think about. So all of that stuff that we might have heard about, we're gonna clean slate. We're gonna wipe the slate clean.
Wipe the slate clean. That's kind of hard to say.
Wipe the slate clean.
Wipe the slate clean.
Burying the hatchet.
I think that means something else.
That's the same thing. That's like starting over, starting afresh.
But that's like specifically with a person, though.
We had beef, and now we're squashing the beef.
I've had beef with cEDH. No more, thanks to this video.
No more, exactly. So
this podcast is a podcast.
It's a podcast. It's a video podcast.
I am recording on audio. I double checked.
Good. Okay, we're doing good. Video's recording too. All right.
Nice. All right. This is bound to be great.
By the way, we're already doing better, I think.
Yeah,
this is much better.
We already did this whole podcast, and we're like, that sucked. Let's do it again.
If you didn't like this, you should have seen the first one. So step 1.5 then is we're gonna read cEDH.guide's philosophy document.
Right. Yes, this is Ken Bauman's website. A lot of other people worked on it as well. If you go to that site, you'll be able to see that. I talk about this a lot. I think it's an excellent resource. It's one that I really, really wish that I had when I was first getting into cEDH, because it basically has everything. It's like this video, but in like a website format.
We could almost end the podcast right now.
Right? Go to that website and then go from there.
There's so much. But the first thing we're going to do is just read the philosophy document, because I think what happens is that we get into cEDH from Commander.
Yes.
So I know personally, I was playing in like local LGSs every single week. 60 card formats. Yeah. And
we were modern players, both
exactly. Big modern players. Like every time there'd be a local Grand Prix, I would go and play in it. But as more and more of my friends were playing in Commander, I started to, play in a lot more casual circles. And naturally, we were a bunch of, tournament Magic players that really wanted to play Commander more now, because we had so many people at the time, right? Multiplayer just worked better. So stumbling into cEDH was kind of natural for us at that point. I drafted a lot of Vintage Cube, and like there's a lot of busted stuff you can do in Vintage Cube that I feel like I can do in cEDH too. So
we're assuming that if you've gotten to this point, you are from Magic in some other capacity. You're probably not learning how to play Magic right in cEDH, because that would be a little bit tricky. There's just a lot of stuff, a lot of cards.
Yeah, weird stuff to start playing Magic in is cEDH. That's a intensely deep pool to jump into.
Right. Yeah, but you kind of have to. We didn't really talk about this though. The couple of specifics that are important to know about Commander, specifically cEDH. We should talk about that before we go further on our list.
Yeah, we're only on step 1.5.
We'll take a quick break from that, pit stop, and talk about something else for a little bit.
A little disclaimer.
The 3 things we all think,
Play to Win thinks.
That are super important is it's important to know the cards in the format. There's a Moxfield site a link specifically. We'll talk about Moxfield in a second. That has basically all of the staples in the format. It's important to get familiar with that list. You can just read them one by one.
Get a sense of the cards that you're going to see out there while you're playing.
So it's important to know the cards in the format because the meta is the format. The meta game is what everyone is playing. That's how you're going to have to decide what to do. Either way, the other important things are knowing how the stack works and knowing how priority works. These things are super important in our format because of the 4-player nature of it. So it's important to know that priority goes in clock order. Every time something new is placed on the stack, everybody gets a round of priority. And it's important to know how the stack works. First in, last out. That's kind of self-explanatory, but it's just those things, they come up a lot. There's a lot of many cards on the stack at the same time. So it's important to know how priority in the stack works. So you know when to interact because the whole format is interacting.
And there's a lot of commanders that win because of stupid stack interactions too.
That's true.
Like decks like a Nala win because they abuse how the stack works.
Right. And also because Eminence is broken.
Also because Eminence is broken too.
Yes.
Gitrog does not have Eminence, but also abuses the stack because can win in bizarre ways on your cleanup step even.
Yeah. So it's just important to remember that every time you're casting a spell, you're basically asking your opponent, does this resolve? Does this resolve? Does this resolve? You're not just saying, I'm casting it, it resolves. You have to make sure priority goes around. Make sure everyone's okay with the spells as you cast them.
And Magic's a complicated game, so give people time to think about what they want to do too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a given fourth. We can get back to the list.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get back to the list. Okay, so our number 2.5 is watch gameplay.
This is selfishly because we're a gameplay channel. You
I mean, you're already on a great resource.
You're already doing this one.
Exactly right. If you're
watching this video, you've already gotten to this step. You should have gone to step 1 first. cEDH.guide. Go back, read the philosophy document. But now you're here. Watch content, other content. There's a ton of great resources. We'll link some of them below. If you want to find them on Twitter, find them on YouTube, find them anywhere that they're making content. That's the best way that you're going to learn about the format. Learn how people cast their spells, learn how the priority works, learn how the win conditions happen. Watching content at first is going to be the best way to do that.
And for me, it was a great way to kind of understand what kind of decks were out there and what else I might be playing against, because you can only learn so much from the play group that you're playing with, but it doesn't give you a good idea as to, like, down the line, if you end up going to play in large events, what all you might see in those kind of settings too.
Right, yeah, and if you listen to podcasts and you watch gameplay videos and you just observe and consume cEDH content, you'll get to kind of understand what to expect in tournaments and what to expect in strange metagames, which is, in my opinion, like the best way to play cEDH is kind of like with strangers, which is kind of different from casual commander for me. I don't really like playing casual commander with strangers because I don't know what the power level is going to be. I'm not sure if my deck's going to be way too underpowered or way too overpowered, but in cEDH, we know the power level. It's as powerful as you can get. So playing with strangers is like a blast.
cEDH is almost like a misnomer. Like, it really should be called max power, because that's really what we're going for, right? Like, we're just trying to play at the maximum power, but like it's also kind of established while we're talking about this like rule 0 situation for cEDH. It's also pretty established that I'm going to do what I can to win the game, and I'm not going to like rules lawyer the crap out of you, but like I'm going to make sure that everything happens the right way, that it's a fair game for everyone, but I'm also going to make plays that will help progress me through the game.
Right, yeah, it's important to keep that mindset, because mindset, as you'll read on the philosophy document, if you haven't paused the video to read that yet, or paused the podcast, we're making a podcast.
Okay, it's a podcast, a video podcast.
Playing to win, which is why we named the channel this.
Oh my God.
That is cEDH. That's the mindset of like all of your game actions progress you to win the game in a more likely chance. That's why you're making all of your decisions. You think it increases your chance to win the game. So that is kind of the main difference between like high power and cEDH, and which is what you'll learn more as you're watching gameplays, you're watching other players interact. You'll understand what that means. Why is it bad to king make? Why is it bad to do spite plays? Things like that.
Yeah.
Should we talk about that
don't
stuff?
Scoop? Yeah, we might as well talk about some of it.
Yes, things like spite plays, which is making a decision just because, man, fuck you. That's why you screwed me over before.
Yeah.
Don't really do that in cEDH.
No,
it doesn't
really
it doesn't
happen.
increase your chance to win the game. Don't try to kill a bunch of stuff while your death is on the stack or something like that.
Right, yeah. If you're only going to make things that help progress you, and again, like if you're just going to die anyway, maybe it's not worth doing something. Maybe it's not worth casting Pact of Negation when you only have 4 lands and no Dark Ritual in your hand.
Right, yeah.
It's one of those things that you kind of know when you see. Right. Sometimes things are inevitable, where like you'll go to counter someone because they're trying to win the game, and the only way that you cannot lose the game is to counter the spell, right? So you got to counter the spell, but then like the player after them then wins the game, right?
Right, that's gonna happen.
That's just going to happen, right? But you have to do everything that you can to keep yourself in the game for as long as possible, right? Scooping in response to Dockside Extortionist immediately takes, right? It could take your win percentage from 0.5 to 0, and that's still 0's worse than anything else.
Right, yeah. Concession can be a good thing if you're locked out of the game for one reason or another, and you talk to the table and say, hey, are we all good to concede? None of us can cast spells. That's great. That's not what we're talking about.
But bringing this back to the step, this is all stuff that you'll see in gameplay, right? This is the exact mindset that you'll see. We're still a part of the Commander format. We're just a mindset that kind of created its own metagame.
Right, yeah.
Is basically what that is. So our number 3.5 is look at Decklist.
Yes, this is the best way to understand the format, understand the cards that have been played. We talked a little bit earlier about the staples list on Moxfield. That is super great, but seeing the numbers in Decklist is very important. Seeing the low land count, most decks are playing 28 to 32 lands. Some are playing as low as like 25 or 26. Some are playing as high as 35 or 36. Depends on the deck. You know, there's a whole bunch of range, but that 30-ish, I would say, is like the average for a cEDH deck right now. To me, that's the first thing I check if I'm seeing, is this a cEDH deck or a high-powered list? I check the lands. If it's around 30, okay, that's step one. The second thing that I check for is the 4 artifacts: Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox. Which one am I forgetting?
Soul Ring.
Soul Ring. It's got to have all 4 of those.
Only one of them you'll see in like every casual deck.
Right. cEDH decks, every single one.
Every single one are going in there.
I think there are some Yuriko lists that maybe don't play Soul Ring or something. I think that's wrong.
But I haven't ever seen a casual player put Lion's Eye Diamond in their deck.
Yeah, that's a great signal card.
But that's a great signal card right there that this is cEDH that we're playing. Some other things, every single possible tutor.
Oh, yes.
Every single possible tutor that's going to advantage you, that's also low to the ground. We're not playing Diabolic Tutor or anything like that, right?
Some 3-mana tutors like Eldritch Evolution and Praetor's Grasp, those cards might be played, but everything that is a small, cheap 1 to 2 mana tutor, that's going to be in your deck.
We're also going to be playing, I mean, outside of like the 4 main mana artifacts we just named, this is where you'll see a lot of like mana vaults and like other really cheap artifact manas that help make up for the fact that you're playing so few lands. And you might see a lot of rituals too.
Right, yeah, and if you're looking at these deck lists, it'll be really helpful to kind of see what the main strategies are. You know, the stacks lists, the mid-range lists, the turbo lists. You can kind of translate those to 60-card formats. That the turbo lists are kind of the aggro lists, the control lists in 60-card are that's going to be better for like stacks in cEDH, and mid-range is mid-range across the board. In our format, we just play Seedborn Muse. But as you look at these deck lists, a great place to find them is like cEDH Decklist database. Once you look at those decks, that'll give you a real help to find what kind of deck that you want to play, what cards that you want to play.
It's a great jumping off point. Like, you'll go out there and you'll find decks that aren't on the database that are really cool and really powerful. But it's a really good snapshot of the format. A good, like, if you put a big shovel in a big scoop of dirt, and like you got a bunch of it, but there's still a bunch of dirt that's still there. Maybe dirt's not the right word.
I don't know if I quite understand the metaphor, but
right, like if you're shoveling mulch, right? But like it's a big pile.
I'm talking to the wrong guy.
There's a big pile of mulch, and you only scooped some of it out.
That's the database?
Right, that's the database. They have some of the mulch, but they don't have the entire mulch pile.
All right, they don't. All right, so you can go deeper, is what you're saying.
You can go deeper
than the database.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Absolutely. No,
cEDH is a big heaping pile of mulch.
This is an excellent metaphor. I'm glad that you explained it.
Exactly.
What's the next step?
So number 4.5 is find your playstyle. So we already talked about the different types of archetypes that are out there between turbo, stacks, and mid-range.
Turbo is stuff like Ad Nauseam, casting one spell that will draw you 30 to 50 cards and winning the game from one situation, like a combo. Normally those decks win off of like Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach things.
Storming off, if you will.
Although not always storming exactly like the mechanic, but
you're casting many spells in the same turn, which is what Storm is.
Yeah, okay. And then there's also stacks, which is a lot of, I mean, this one is, we translate it to control, which oftentimes it is. Decks like, think of one stacks, Yasharn.
Urza.
Urza is a better example. Urza is a great stacks deck. These decks don't see as much play anymore. There is a debate on whether or not they're even really that good, honestly. But I think there are decks like Blood Pod that can really stacks out the board. It's interesting, though, stacks in our format, if you're looking for that control feel, stacks in our format is often more of a creature strategy, which would make more sense for like an aggro player. but realistically, the creature decks win slower than the turbo decks.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you're just looking for creatures that are going to impact the board, prevent people from playing spells, potentially making it more expensive for people to cast spells. Really, things that cripple other decks from doing what they want to do is really what you're looking for.
And then there's also mid-range decks
that's just value.
Yeah, they just exist kind of in the middle between. They want to try to make sure the turbo deck can't win on turn 3, and they want to get off right before the stacks deck can turn the corner and win the game in the super late game. Mid-range decks are playing things like Seedborn Muse, or a lot of times I would say green decks like Thrasios decks.
Yeah, a lot of the green decks tend to lean towards the mid-range style there. Just decks that are trying to generate a ton of value
and are interacting a lot. Blue Farm is a mid-range deck.
The interacting a lot and not necessarily trying to win immediately, I think, are also big, indicators as to what would be considered mid-range too.
I would say decks like Blue Farm, which is Timna Crom, at one point was considered a turbo deck, and I think in many people's eyes it still is considered a turbo deck. I find that deck win percentage just skyrockets if you just try to wait to the mid game. Yeah. So in my mind, it's a mid-range deck that has the ability to win quickly, but realistically, oftentimes maybe shouldn't win quickly and should just try to grind instead.
Yeah, exactly. So as we're going into our next step, I do want to point out something else that we are looking for as we're going through steps 3 through 5 here.
Yeah. 3.5 through 5.5.
3.5. Oh yes, I'm sorry. 3.5 through 5.5. So step 5.5 is pick your deck.
Yeah.
But again, we want to make sure that we're looking out for 5 things when we're going to pick our deck. The commanders that we use want to have either card advantage,
combo potential.
Yeah.
Like a combo outlet, part of a combo.
Thank you.
Yep.
Removal?
Removal is an option for a commander.
Stacks piece.
A stacks piece is also an option for a commander.
Or they're a haymaker.
Yeah, big beefy beater, something that's just going to deal a lot of damage and disrupt the board in some powerful way.
Exactly.
Those are the things that you're looking for. Almost every commander in CEDH will have one of those things in probably that order, card advantage being the most important, combo potential being the second most important.
Most definitely. You'll see decks like Magda that are like a main combo potential commander, whereas decks with like Thrasios or Timna in them have a lot of options for card advantage right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that you can play CEDH, a lot of different things that you can pick, a lot of different styles. But those are the main ones that you're going to be looking for in CEDH. Certain high power commanders, like maybe a Traxa or something like that from regular commander, they don't always translate the best into our format because it's not doing one of those 5 things. It's not gaining you advantage unless you already have something going on, and it's hard to get stuff going on in CEDH. There's a lot of interaction.
Yeah, the +1/+1 counter decks in CEDH are not necessarily what the +1/+1 counter decks are in regular EDH. I think what's important to note as you're picking your deck is that not all commanders are created equally. So there are going to be some that you might just not be able to play. That being said, if you bring me a deck in a CEDH setting that might not be something I've seen before, I'm going to treat it as a CEDH deck, right? Like if you again, that's exactly what we're saying at the beginning of the game, is that like we're trying to play at the maximum power, and if we all know that that's what we're doing, yeah, hell yeah, bring it on. I want to see that.
Yeah, every commander deck is a CEDH deck. Some of them are just bad CEDH decks.
Yeah, they might not win a tournament.
When people say Atraxa isn't playable, who said that? Did I say that? When people say things like that, what they really mean is like it hasn't been good yet, but maybe you can make it good. I don't know.
If you went
maybe
to a tournament, maybe it wouldn't do the best, but like maybe in your local meta, like it kicks ass.
Whatever works. If it's winning games in a CEDH environment where everyone else is trying their hardest and playing all the cards that they want to,
I'm not going to stop you. Yeah, exactly. Number 6. Number 6 is
number 6.5.
6. Oh, shit. Number 6.5 is building your deck. We haven't played a game of CEDH at all.
Good thing was one more step after this.
Yes, there's one more step at this, so don't you worry about that. We have to build our deck first.
CEDH cards can be expensive.
You might have noticed going through steps 3 through 5, the little price tag thing at the bottom of moxfield.com there. Yeah, these decks can be pretty expensive. So we have a couple of workarounds.
Main one is Proxy.
Yeah.
What's the site that I use? What's the site that we use to actually go to stuff. Should we even say that when we have too many people go and then it gets shut down?
And then it's going to get shut down.
Just Google it. Just like Google it. You'll find it.
If you just Google proxy, like
Proxy MTG,
making proxies for Magic
you'll
the
eventually
Gathering.
get to one where you can like print it out, which is what we do for the show. Cameron cuts them all out individually. We should get you one of those paper cutters.
I'm so bad at them.
Oh, really?
If you want really lopsided and crinkled proxies,
Okay.
like hell yeah, let's do
keep it
that.
with the scissors.
But
Keep it with the
No,
scissors.
the scissors work. The
Okay.
scissors work. Because now I'm at a point now you get like the big box of proxies and you can sort through some stuff.
Right, yeah.
Right. So again, the other thing that you can do is you can go back to that Moxfield link that we talked about, that has the most commonly played cards, and you can just keep a bunch of proxies around, so that way you get to play a bunch of different decks. What kind of helped me get into the format was I wanted to play a bunch of different decks. So Proxying allowed me to play a bunch of different styles, every single Thrasios variant that I wanted to. And it really kind of helped me figure out what decks I liked the most and what ones I wanted to build in paper then.
Yeah, and it's also, if you're proxying, it's really good at getting other people into cEDH. You need a pod, you need 3 other players, and if your friends aren't quite sure if they want to dip their toes in, if you say, here's a deck, here's Godo, you can learn to play, that'll be helpful at getting other people into cEDH, and proxying is like the only real way to do that for most people.
For a fifth of the price of a cEDH deck, you can proxy up 4 cEDH decks and just like go to an LGS and say, hey, who wants to try some cEDH?
Yeah, well, maybe be careful with the LGS. Check with them before you bring proxies inside, because some stores are a little bit hesitant about that. But at your home, at a kitchen table, when it's not for a tournament or for online tournaments.
Or like a bus stop.
Yeah, a bus stop. Wait, what?
Yeah, like you just go to the bus stop and just... There's always people hanging out there.
What are
Right?
you, 9 years old?
Yeah, there's always... Well, no, I mean just like even like the Lanta. Like there's always people waiting for the Lanta.
And just give them a deck and teach them how to play Magic real quick before they get on the bus.
I don't know.
That's a great idea.
I think so too.
Yeah. But as long as you're not playing in a tournament, proxies are a great idea if you're playing with your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a couple of sites that we can include somewhere. Should we? Nah, fuck it. We won't include the sites.
Google the site.
Google it. Like if you ever want to learn how to do something, just Google it.
I know we said we would do everything in this video, but
Just imagine if the whole video is, all right, step 1, Google it.
Google it. Google cEDH.guide.
Google cEDH.guide, then Google cEDH gameplay, Google cEDH decklists, Google what's my
Google.
play style. Just Google it.
Google it. Google things with Bing.
I hope we're going to get like Google ads now.
Oh.
Because we're saying Google too much. Stop saying Google. Stop saying Google. Wait, maybe Google ads are good.
Why don't we want the money from Google?
Yes.
I'm full time now.
Oh yeah, we need the money. We need to get sponsored by Google.
Sponsor us. I'll wear Google Glass.
All right, let's get to the next. Last step.
All right. Well, my inside of my glasses prompter is telling me that number 7.5 is play your deck.
Oh, we're finally there. We can finally play cEDH
playing
now.
the deck. So, where do you play the deck? Because not every LGS is going to have the exact setting that you want. Some LGSs have players that aren't interested in cEDH yet. Not until you get them into it.
Yeah. First step is to ask, though. Got to ask your local game store.
You got to ask local game store, especially if you are playing proxies. At least you're in the store, but don't cause a scene or anything like that. But just otherwise, there is a humongous percentage of the community that's online and very heavily present online. If you are a Play to Win patron, that means that you already have access to the cEDH. What? You have access to the Play to Win Discord for games of cEDH is what I'm trying to say. And there's people on our Discord that are playing games every single day. They're a great group of folks and a great way to get your feet in.
Discord is where a lot of the games happen, in my experience, in my view. That's where I see a lot of cEDH games going place. cEDH.guide has a list of Discords that you can get into. There's a ton that if you go off of the Decklist database, you can find specific Discord channels for specific decks. A lot of these Discord channels have tournaments or some way to play with other people. A lot of other content creators have other Discords. Playing with Power has a tournament series that you can do through theirs. So Discord is how a lot of these games happen. And we use something called Spell Table, which has the life totals on there that,
And it's pretty easy to set up too. What we actually use for our online footage is we well, we use Zoom. But we just set up our phone as our camera. Yep. So, well, now we have tripods. But when we first were setting up, I had just had like long boxes of my Magic Bulk and like 2-gallon peanut jars that sat on top of them, and a big cardboard box across the top that I strapped my phone to.
Yeah, as long as you have a smartphone, you should be able to make it work and get on some Discords and play some Magic.
And that's really the best way to learn a cEDH deck is to play it. You can go through the prime. We didn't even talk about primers. You can go through the primers for your deck as you're like looking at Decklist and you know, getting the exact lines of play for how your deck is supposed to go. But really the best way to learn how you get yourself into those situations to combo off is to play the game.
100%. The only way that you learn is through making mistakes. That's not true. You can learn through other ways. But making mistakes is, in my opinion, the best way to learn. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have to go through that thing to kind of learn how the format works, learn how to play. But playing is the best way to get better and to get more involved in cEDH.
Exactly, yeah.
A bug, sorry.
It's a little bug. No, that's okay. No, yeah, definitely. That's most of my learning from every format that I've ever played has been from making mistakes.
Yep, 100%. Obviously, we make a ton of them.
Oh yeah, right. Make a lot of silly mistakes, right? But again, we're just trying to learn from them, and that's how you get better. Something that I like to remember though is that, you know, if you can back up what your play was, if you can have a coherent argument to say why what you did was the right thing to do, I think then it's not a bad play, right? Based on the knowledge that you have, you're going to hear other people that go, oh, well, you should have targeted this. Why are you countering this? I mean, you're going to hear this in other, you know, formats too. But a lot of that, if you knowing what you have in your hand, other players don't, you know, I think if you can, like I said, just back up what you did, you're on the right track.
Yeah, and even if you aren't, maybe you forgot about something, but as long as you have a reason for every play that you made, you'll be able to learn from the mistakes when you make them. So if you are trying to do something specifically because player A has something, but you forget that player B has something else on board, if you didn't think about that thing, but you had a reason, you're more likely to remember where you messed up because you had a reason, you just forgot one last step.
Sometimes you lose because you think someone is going to do something that they don't, right? And sometimes you got to learn from those scenarios too. So
got to make them have it.
And yeah, exactly. Got to make them have it, and you only learn if you play in those scenarios too.
Should we talk about some rapid fire resources before we go?
Yes, let's rapid fire up a couple of other resources here. The cEDH subreddit. Great for just cEDH content, like all the content creators post all of their new stuff there when it comes out. Great for single card discussion. Not good if you're looking for memes. All right, the cEDH content creators on Twitter, also great to follow. They tweet about all kinds of stuff. Unless they're me, and then we only tweet about like things once every couple of days. I don't know. I'm still new. I'm gonna get better. Not great for your sanity though. Combo, the combo database. Great way to learn about a bunch of different combos that are out there and what you might see. How to interact with them. That's how you learn how to deal with them. The staples list. We've mentioned the staples list before. Big old link on Moxfield full of over 200 cards that you might see pretty regularly. cEDH.guide. Also something we notated extensively. They're great. Check them out. And then if you can't proxy for some reason and you need to go budget, budgetbrews.club is also a great place to go if you are under those restraints too.
Wow, I can't believe we've done it. 7.5 tips on how to get into cEDH as well as some resources.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Don't get bogged down about the game theory. Don't get bogged down about, really anything. If you're just with your friends and you're having fun, that's what matters.
Yep. It's not winning or fun. Winning is fun.
Winning is fun.
Trying to win, playing to win is fun. Much more than winning, at least for me. I want to try to win. That's the fun part.
Exactly. Also, if you don't know, ask. A lot of tables will also be very willing to help you through lines if you need to, or if there's certain interactions that you're not too familiar with and you say, hey, how does this card work with this card? People are very willing to help explain what their cards do.
Yeah. And I would also just close on cEDH is a mindset more than anything else.
Yeah.
The only thing that really separates it from other Commander is that, the mindset that we're all playing to win, we're all making strategies and get card assessments based on trying to win the game. And through that, you have a lot of fun doing. You have fun while you're trying to have that mindset of playing to win.
So that's it. that's the 7.5 steps on how to get into the format. This is the first of many Play to Win podcasts that we're going to start putting out on a weekly basis here. So if there's anything that you want to see us talk about in the future, definitely make sure you leave that in the comment down below.
Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Demon of Razgriz and Baby G-Bus.
If you'd like to find any of our merch, like this right here, you can do so at playtowinmtg.com.
If you'd like to support us at no extra cost to you, check out our affiliate links down below next time you use those services.
Follow us at TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram for more content.
Thank you so much for watching.
See you next time. Should we talk about the $50 patrons?
Eli Richty,
Jason Perkins,
Man Solo,
Nicola Markovic,
Steven Schlichty,
that green guy,
Plantain Jackson,
Isaiah Berlisky,
Michael Lyon,
Pedro,
Byron Wang,
C,
I know you, Khwaja A. Hamid,
Jacob Depp,
CZ,
Michael Ballou,
Jan Wildfang,
Adrian Jarvis,
who? You said Adrian Jarvis.
Sleepy Jarvis,
Bueno,
Swampy McGee,
David Nelson,
Vinny Bianca,
Jormag,
Moxfield. Why do we make it so impossible? It just looks like we don't know how to read.
No, we don't. I think we made that clear many times on the channel.
That's good.
Yeah.
You feel it?
No, it's still there. Oh, I did. I did. I thought I had it.
That's it.